So just as the Pies Army needed some good news coming into the King's birthday clash with the calamity of injuries we have on our list at the moment, we get just what we were hoping for, and that is news, as reported by the Herald Sun, that Scott Pendlebury is likely to sign a 1-year contract extension, taking Pendles to the end of 2025. I'll just read out the little snippet from the Herald Sun. Collingwood champion Scott Pendlebury will play on next season after progressing in talks with the club about a new contract for next season. The Magpies are finalising a deal to keep the brilliant ball winner in black and white for a remarkable 20th AFL season next year. The contract extension is in reward for his continued form and leadership role, helping steer Collingwood back-to-back premiership assault. So what that says to me is, obviously, it means he may break that all-time AFL games record that's currently held by Boomer Harvey. I forget how many games it is, but he's not too far away. He's less than a season odd away from breaking that record. So it's great to see that, obviously, Pendle's form warrants another season at AFL level, but it's nice to see that Collingwood are giving Pendles a chance in another way to break the games record and take that off Boomer, where no one thought probably anyone could take that off Boomer Harvey from North Melbourne. And talking about his form has actually been really good this year. He is right now the third highest rated player for Collingwood, and that's beneath Nick Dacos. No one's going to be above him in the league for all that matters. And then Darcy Cameron, and then you got Scott Pendlebury at age 36, ranked as the third highest rated Collingwood player this year. I remember early in the season, people were saying, Pendles is done, he's this, he's that. But then, I don't know if I was looking at it through a different lens or a bias because I love Pendles and I don't know Collingwood without Scott Pendlebury. I'm 26, so my whole life revolves around Scott Pendlebury existing within the Collingwood helm. So that's my experience. But I remember there was a time early in the games where he was the highest ground ball out of the Collingwood side, compared to a Jordan De Goey or a Jack Crisp. He was getting more ground ball gets than both these players. And that's a stark sort of thing to come across when you consider how old Pendlebury is. You wouldn't think he'd be able to get below his knees as well as players in their prime should be in a Jordan De Goey and Jack Crisp. Like, I think Scott Pendlebury had 7 ground ball gets per game in the first 3 games compared to Jordy De Goey had like 3.5. And everyone was pointing fingers at Pendle, saying he's done. I think it was Kane Corns who may have had a crack at Scott Pendlebury, suggesting that his season or career was essentially over at AFL level. But it's been an incredible turnaround this year for the Collingwood as a whole, and it's just great news to receive on a Saturday morning. And I'm glad that I can share this with you guys, that he will be extending his contract. We don't know how much it's for. Like I said, the AFL don't really disclose salaries as much. But let's talk about some of the games that Pendlebury has had this year to warrant this contract extension. So I think by far and away, Pendle's best game thus far this year came against Adelaide at the G. I think he had 30 disposals that game, but what he did in that first quarter, I think he kicked 2 goals from stoppage and provided 2 goal assists all in the 1 quarter. You could almost argue that's the best quarter from a Collingwood player this year, and that was done by a 36-year-old aging player who's said to be finished. The other game that springs to mind is that one against West Coast, where he collected, I think it was 28 disposals, going at 90% disposal efficiency. And if that's not Pendles in a nutshell, I don't know what is. He's still elusive, he's still hard to catch. Yes, he still gets caught for holding the balls more often than he has done in the past. He's still able to dance out a contest, but that 90% disposal efficiency in the midfield at 28 disposals is an incredible clip. He also had a goal assist, 7 score involvements in that game to earn himself, I think it was the 4 coaches' votes, and that game against Adelaide, 5 coaches' votes. So the coaches are clearly recognising that Pendles has still got a lot more in a tank, and they're realising that through these performances that he's had recently. Looking at those early games where people were saying Pendles was struggling, he had that opening round game against GWS where he had 18 disposals. Yeah, he wasn't great. Did he have some clangers? Sure. And then you've got Sydney, where he had 26 disposals and 15 contested possessions and 10 ground ball gets. Like, I know stats only tell some part of the story, and there were a lot of clangers in those times, but you have to remember when the team was struggling as a whole, as a unit, it sort of filtered through at like a disease, these turnovers in our back half. We weren't able to chain up in defensive half efforts and transition that ball from end to end, which we're still struggling with at the moment with our defensive half transition. I think I said in the preview, we're second last for defensive half transition, and the only team beneath us is West Coast. So that is concerning, and that was prevalent early in the year, tied in with some terrible turnovers in our defensive half, which we've sort of mitigated now, but we're still not able to move the ball as well from end to end. And maybe that's the way it's going to be with Collingwood changing their scoring profile, scoring more from stoppages and turnovers as the game and as the opposition do their homework, and as they have done so in the off-season. Now maybe it's time for Collingwood to change it. And maybe that's just a concerted emphasis for the club as an entirety to change that look so that they can be unpredictable and malleable. So I'm just looking at the games record now. Pendles has Dustin Fletcher at 400 in his sights next. And he's got Kevin Bartlett at 403, Sean Burgoyne at 407, Michael Tuck at 426, Boomer Harvey at 432. So if we can do some quick maths here with the calculator, because I'm not really that good at math, we go 432 minus, he's currently standing at 394. That's 38 games that he's got to do, divide that. So we're in round 13 right now, so we've got 11 games there, so that will take him to 27 games before finals. If we make the grand final, when we make the grand final, that will be another, let's say 3 games, because we're gonna make top 4 and be in the qualifying final. That will take us to 14 games minus 38, which takes us to 24. And then next year, when Pendles has a clean run at the game with no injuries, he will play 22 games and then will hopefully play his record-breaking game in maybe another grand final next year. I think if my maths serves me correctly, guys, help me out in the comment section because that's not my forte, but if my math serves me correctly, we're gonna see Pendles break Boomer's record in a finals game in 2025. But what it also does is it gives Pendles a chance to break the Copeland Trophy record. I think he's either level with Bucks at 6 Copeland trophies or 1 beneath. But all you pie historians in the comment section, let me know, is it Buckley 6, Pendles 6? And that now gives Pendles another chance to break a club record. Along with that, he's currently equal in the Anzac Day medal tally at the moment with James Hird, sitting at 3 and 3. So he gets at least 1 more game on Anzac Day to try and break that record. And if he gets 4, I don't think anyone will break that anytime soon, unless your name is maybe Nick Dacos. That is the caveat. On a side note, what does this mean for other players who are nearing the end of their career? They're in the twilight of their career, because that obviously takes up salary cap space. I don't necessarily think they're just going to sign Pendles on peanuts. I think that's almost disrespectful for what he's done for the club, because yes, his performances may not be the same, but what he offers outside of that, he's the people's captain. Darcy Moore, respectfully, he's the captain of the football club, but as long as Scott Pendlebury is around, and as far as I'm concerned, he's my captain. I always say, that's my captain right there, Scott Pendlebury. So I don't think he's going to be on peanuts with what he offers outside of that game, outside of his playing ability. We know what he does for Nick Dacos, Isaac Quain, or all the youngsters coming up. He serves a very important role there. And it's very likely, once he retires, he will enter a coaching role. I think he said on the Ball Magnets podcast that he will look to have a gap year, at least, and then come back into footy in a coaching role. So that will most likely reside at the Collingwood Football Club, you would think. So we need to treat him kindly and with all the respect that he deserves and he's earned over his long career, going into his 20th career next season. We've got to look after him. But what does it mean for those other players? Does that mean there's less room for a Steel Side Bottom or a Jeremy Howe, Mason Cox? Something's got to give, right? So I don't understand the salary cap space, and like I said, there's not a lot of information on it, so it's hard to, I guess, have an idea and go through permutations and say, well, if Howie signs for this and Sadie signs for this, then we can do that and this and the other. It doesn't work like that. Who goes? Somebody's got to go. And I think, for me personally, it might be still side bottom. I feel like structurally, Jeremy Howe still offers a lot as that third key tall defender. And he played well against the Doggies as well, in my opinion. Had a few intercept marks, won some important one-on-one contests, and he's still very good with his ball use. So I think that position is harder to replace if Howe was to go out. Whereas still side bottom's in trouble now. Harvey Harrison has come onto the scene. TJ and Di Mattia are players who can play wing or half back flank. So there are a lot of players who can trouble Sidey for his position right now, whether it's on the wing or the half back flank. The next best thing for Sidey right now, if this half-back flank experiment doesn't work, is he needs to swing forward and show his forward craft and try and establish a position there. But even then, you've got Joe Richards, you've got Lockie Schultz, you've got Bo McCreary, you've got Jamie Elliott, you've got Bobby Hill. So we've already got a bunch of small forwards that are very good, if not elite, that are holding down the fort in our front half. So where does that leave room for a still side bottom? I'm not too sure. And then you've got Mason Cox. If we get someone like Ned Moyle from Gold Coast for a second round pick, he comes in, plays main ruck, Darcy Cameron switches to the ruck forward. If McStay comes back and he's healthy and Brody Myercheck's available, then that squeezes Mason Cox out once again. Next year, looking at the scope of things, if McStay's healthy at the start of the year as well, I just don't see a spot for Mason Cox. What he's done for the club has been nothing short of incredible, given his journey to football, at AFL football. But I think out of the players that we've just talked about, what's got to give, I think it's either Steele Sidebottom or Mason Cox. Or at the very least, they will sign a contract that basically pays them, the veterans, in the NBA they call it a vet minimum contract, a veterans minimum contract, which is basically the lowest amount of money they can pay a player, to have more of a coaching mentor role with these younger players. So maybe that's an option as well. But in the end, great news for Collingwood and Scott Pendlebury and everyone else involved on a Saturday morning going into the Monday game against King's birthday. It's just what we needed. See you guys. Bye.